the shadow of your smile. The shadow of your smile.
Skateboard is a very interesting character to talk about. He is probably the most odd character in this entire game gameplay wise, and it's very hard to explain why. He is simply some sort of an anomaly amongst everyone else, and you can see it, but it's hard to explain it unless I really explain Skateboard's entire kit, which is unfortunately a lot of things. Skateboard is one of the melee-oriented characters, sporting an impressive 75 HP and 75 shield. Skate often uses his incredible mobility and high burst damage between his forms to put pressure on players and threaten with said burst damage. While he is somewhat weak compared to other melee characters, Skateboard makes up for most of it with his mobility and tools to make him stand out as an odd character. Oh yeah, his kit. This is going to take a bit. Let's start with his kit when he is off board. His passive allows him to gradually increase his walk speed as long as he keeps moving or isn't stunned, after having a 25% haste boost unless he gets a kill or an assist, in which he gets a brief increase to 50% haste. His M1 does a 2-hit swing with his skateboard, doing 15 damage each hit while losing 5% of your haste. It's nothing really special, it's really just an average M1 move. His M2 offboard is one of the dumbest moves in this entire game. It's a charge move that ranges between 10 to 30 damage, and depending on how long you charge it before it attacks, it can stun the enemy for a maximum of 0.75 seconds. Oh god. The drawback is, laying this move is somewhat difficult if you just throw it out, but the reward for it is incredible. His Q launches him forward and has a 15 damage hitbox with a 10 damage lingering hitbox for some reason. It also immediately gives a 25% haste boost and is often used mainly as a finishing tool or a getaway tool, as the speed it gives is great and that hitbox is insanely forgiving. His E puts him on board. That's the entire move. I'll get more into it when we actually talk about the onboard section. Both his offboard and onboard share the same finisher, but I'll discuss it here to get it out of the way. Skate stands still and goes at max speed with a huge hitbox, stunning anyone he hits for 2 seconds while doing 30 damage. This is a very risky finisher that can open up opportunities for teammates on Conquer maps, and also sets Skate to his highest possible speed, which is insanely helpful. Okay, now let's get into the meat of Skate's onboard kit, which you get access from offboard by pressing E. Skate's onboard M1 allows him to kick for extra speed and slightly extra damage. This is only used for getting some bit of speed, there's practically nothing else going for it unless you want some chip damage. Skate's onboard M2 allows him to do a trick on his board for 15 damage. This is mainly used for damaging purposes and vertical height to get to other spots. It's an okay tool really. Skate's onboard Q allows him to stay in place to charge a dash that gives him more speed the more he charges. The initial dash deals 10 damage and is mainly used as a tool to air stall or to get instant speed when in a weird situation. It's surprisingly helpful and maintains Skate's speedy gameplay style. Skate's onboard E has 2 properties. If you tap E, he gets off the board immediately and can do whatever he wants off board. If he holds E, he gets a big hit with his skateboard that does more damage the more speed you have when dismounting. Specifically with what speed you had used it at, going from a minimum of 15 to 35 damage. This is one of Skate's many options at locking in kills due to its high damage output and somewhat fast swing speed right after. It is hard to land because of the high speed you need for good damage, but if you can land it, you can lock some kills easier. And that's Skate's entire kit. Yeah. Okay, let's just not beat around the bush. Let's talk about Skate's best tool in his arsenal. His onboard passive. Skate's onboard passive is the most important move in Skate's entire arsenal. When Skate is near a ledge and jumps, Skate will do a trick animation and land on the ground, which gives him more speed and a somewhat large hitbox on landing, which deals only 5 damage. Here's the thing though, there is no cooldown to the tricks. You can trick as many times as you want with the passive on anything that is even considered a ledge. Some trick spots look very obvious and others just make no sense half the time. This makes Skate able to be fast almost all the time as long as he mostly keeps tricking, which then also allows him to put more damage onto enemies thanks to Skate's whole board hitbox and the initial trick damage, which adds up slowly. Tricking is beautiful and a central part of Skate's game plan of hit and run, which makes it such an important tool to him. Now, I am not the best Skate player by any means, but some maps feel insanely fun to trick on during matches since it gives me tons of damage potential on enemies, or just a dopamine of hearing that trick noise. In fact, Skate's whole kit is satisfying when you start heating up and tricking everywhere with constant burst damage on enemies. It's one of those characters that just feels so fun to use, but unlike a character I love playing like Subspace, Skate gives me way more control and more execution that feels extremely satisfying to get down well. I also think Skate's kit is so unique that he really feels so different in both good and bad ways. The way he solely relies on speed is truly a one-of-a-kind character trait he fully leans into, and I personally dig the concept of it despite some of its flaws as it makes Skate a more exhilarating experience. That being said, however, Skate might be one of the worst cases of being good on specific maps in my life. Some maps either feel too cramped to use Skate, have very odd trick timings, or just don't feel fun to use him on. He is also a character that just has such a stupidly high skill ceiling as well, compounded with this. Due to Skate having such a weird style and high skill ceiling, you are bound to make so many mistakes with movement or general idea of what to use in certain moments. While this could just boil down to a skill issue, which it kinda does, I won't even lie, it just feels like I'm fighting game mechanics at this point, as Skate can sometimes have all his snowballing stopped by a few moves out of nowhere. This man gets caught by any move that halts him and he becomes so vulnerable that it's laughable. It's weird since he is such an unkillable character at times, and randomly he becomes the worst character in mere seconds. It just shows how much Skate loves being on board with Vaulted Chip and how his speed is the one core thing keeping him good, really. It's why Skate loves abusing it and why people absolutely hate it for the most part. Same with trying to secure kills with offboard. I am literally fighting skill issues against me, and maybe that's a good thing because using offboard Skate is hard in general because he is so vulnerable every time, and it's a hard commitment to go for. Overall, Skate just has such high positives and negatives that make him almost feel polarizing to play as in general for me, despite the absurd amount of fun I could get out of him. This would be also the time to talk about how Skate gets changed constantly, but that would be complaining about his volatile balancing, which I feel like would take a long time to discuss. But all I would say is, Skate cannot be balanced well in any way whatsoever. That's really it. I guess the last thing I could say is that he also hurts my wrist sometimes because I keep on turning the camera a lot. So, thanks Skate for giving me some wrist pains, I suppose. And that's really all I got to say about Skateboard. He is a weird character to play and I have no clue how people play this man for so long. He is so oddly dependent on maps and game modes that I really have no idea how to even say if he is strong or not. At least Hyper Laser is a simple character in execution, Skate is just all over the place. Whether he gets balanced well or stays as a weird, somewhat gimmicky fighter, Skate was honestly kind of fun to play. Learning new trick spots and just trying to see what the best approach to matches was with him was a weird learning curve that felt so different, but it was fun nonetheless. I get why people say he is annoying and an absolute nutcase of balancing, but I can't help but just have fun with him on a good amount of maps despite my somewhat lacking skill with him. I'll probably play him much more in the future on some maps just to try and get better with his unique playstyle, but for the time being, I think Skate is just a weird character and I look forward to seeing what changes he'll get sometime.